Hello, everyone. I am here today to share my story, my life story with you. And the reason for my sharing is because I know a lot of people struggle, like I have, through all these years with self doubt, uncomfortable feelings about yourself. And I just want to share how I have pushed through all the tears and the pain and made it this far so far. And I'm so grateful. Maybe my story will help someone else to push through and make it. I was born in 1943, just 2 years after the World War One or two, whichever one it was. It's been a rough hill climbing up. I had some unfortunate circumstances that I was born into. My great aunt raised me from 6 weeks old, and that was truly a blessing, truly a blessing, because she was an outstanding woman with beautiful morals and so much love to share with me and help me to be the person that I am today. And maybe my story will help someone else to realize that no matter what you go through in life, there's always a reason for it, and it's character building, really. Even though I shed many tears and had so many pains and insecurities growing up, because I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody had mama and daddy, and I was the only one in the neighborhood that didn't have that. But I had my great aunt. And at that time, when I was really young, I didn't realize how fortunate I was to have her. She was such a wonderful woman to have in my life. I was really born for her. That's what I think. Because before me, she had had 6 miscarriages, and she was in her middle 50s when she got me. And I was her baby, and she loved me very much, but she was very strict. She didn't put up with no nonsense. And she made sure that I understood everything that I needed to understand. And now I can look back and I'm so appreciative of the blessing that was given to me to be raised by her. Because my birth mother was unstable. She didn't have a place to live when I was born. Even the 9 months that she carried me, she was homeless. And the reason that she was homeless is because my father was married to another woman that lived in California, and my mother was married to another man that was in the army in Germany while I was being conceived. So once he found out about that, well, they separated, of course, and we were living in Houston, Texas at the time. And during that time, after they separated, she had no place to go. Back then, they didn't have food stamps and shelters and um, food pantries. So she just couch surfed here and there wherever she could sleep. And the whole 9 months was horrible for her. She went through a lot herself. Her mother died in front of her when she was 11 years old. So I'm pretty sure that put her on a bad path. Her mother actually bled to death. She had a hemorrhage right in front of her. And that, I'm sure, traumatized her very much and caused her maybe to make a lot of mistakes that she made. My father was a very handsome, good-looking man, and my mother was friends with his sisters. Well, when he came to Houston to visit his parents and his family, he didn't bring his wife, so him and my mom got together and they created me. Hallelujah. Anyway, I just want to say, I truly believe that we are not here by mistake. You know, I've proved all my life, I worked hard to make sure that I wasn't a mistake. And I've raised probably about 12 children. I only gave birth to 2, but I raised a couple of my grandchildren. And then my husband and I, my late husband, I should say, we adopted 3 children, 3 boys when they were just babies from the same mother. And she was drug addicted, so therefore, every time she got pregnant, they took the baby away from her. Yeah, so I always wanted to be a blessing to someone else. It just was just born in me to be loving and caring. And I needed a lot of character building as I was growing up because I felt very insecure in the situation that I was born into. Because all little kids want to be with mommy and daddy, but sometimes that's not possible. It doesn't mean that the universe have given you a bad hand. It just means that that's just the way your life was supposed to be. And one thing about my great aunt, she taught me how never to hate anyone, no matter what color they were or were not. Just show love all the time. She showed me how to be respectful, how to take care of my body, how to be an extreme cleaner, and everything she did had to be perfect. And I grew up in that, and I'm really grateful for that because it has really benefited my life in big ways. But during all the pain and suffering that I suffered growing up, I turned out to be, I think, a pretty good person because all I have is love. I don't have time to be hating on anyone. And our past sometimes just makes us stronger for the future. So I've had many, many blessings in my life, many, many unexpected blessings, and they're still coming. And I'm really grateful for that. I was born 2 years after the Great Depression. So things were very hard back then for people because, like I say, they didn't have food pantries or food stamps like they do now. At least in America they do. I know some of you guys living abroad may not have that luxury even today. But they didn't have that. And my great aunt was married at the time she took me in. And her husband told her that if she took me in, he would not give her any more money to pay bills with. She would have to struggle on her own. And she did it. She actually did it. She went out, she catered and cooked for people. She washed and ironed. She did whatever was necessary to take care of me. And she did a beautiful job, And I'm really grateful for that. I want to give her all the blessings and the tributes that I can possibly give her because she was an outstanding woman. And I know I was born for her to be her baby because she taught me everything that I know today. When my mother's husband found out that she was pregnant with me, he promised that when he came home from the war that he would kill me. But he did come to see me, but he couldn't hurt me because I was just an innocent little baby. It wasn't my fault because of how I got here. I even had his last name. But he never came back. I don't remember seeing him ever because I was a young baby at the time that he visited. But he never tried to harm me. That much I can say for sure. And I had one sister that was older than me. And I had a brother also that I didn't grow up with them, so I didn't really get a chance to spend much time with them. When I got older, I used to go out to where they lived and hang out with them for a little bit, but I didn't know very much about them. Just recently, my brother and I have gotten closer. And then I found out later that there was another boy born 13 months after I was born, but he was adopted right from the hospital. But my sister always told me that I was not the baby. She wanted to make sure that I didn't think I was the baby. So she told me about this child. And later in life, when I was 30 years old, I found him. And we had a very close bond. Of course, he passed away in 2007. So we had a very, very close relationship up until that time. So I was really grateful for that. But this journey, like I say, has not been easy. But only the strong survive, because life is painful. It's just how much we put into it to make it through. So that's my experience so far with life. It's been painful, but I've learned how to push through it and be a survivor and be able to help other people. That has helped me the most, reaching out to help other people. I remember when I was a little girl, there were some people in my neighborhood that were babysitting for a little blind boy. He was a little white boy, but he couldn't see. And I fell in love with him. I used to go and get him. He was a few years younger than I was, and carry him around, bring him over to my house and play with him. And I don't know, I'm just so thankful that I was born with a good heart and had the desire to reach out to other people. I remember when my cousins used to come and play with me when they would come and visit, and I would be playing with other kids that might have had what was called back then infantigo. They would get these sores on their legs, and they would tell me, "Oh, that's nasty. You shouldn't play with them." But they were my friends, and I loved them, so I played with them anyway. Yeah, it was really lonely growing up because I didn't have any siblings. I had siblings, but they didn't live with me, and I hardly ever got a chance to see them. But I was blessed to have neighbors in the neighborhood that had children, and when they would go like to Galveston, Texas, they would always take me. They would take me to different events that they took their children to. So I was really blessed. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was really blessed during that time because I did get to experience a lot in life. And it was a good thing that my great aunt raised me. She's my mama. That's who I call my mama. I call my birth mom my mother, because she kept me from being, she kept me out of trouble, actually, because I was a wild child. You know, one time when I was about, well, 7 or 8 years old, I don't know where I found this can of gasoline, but we had ditches in our neighborhood, and the ditch was filled with rainwater. And I don't know why or how I got this bright idea that I would pour this gas in the ditch and throw a match on it. And guess what? It was a big, huge blaze, but it stayed in the ditch. But I did crazy things when I was growing up. I don't know. But anyway, I survived. I'm 79 and I'm still here. And there was another time when they used to have the extension cords plugged up to the ceiling to have a little in a light socket. And my great aunt's husband had an extension cord running up to that and had the television connected to it. And I got a pair of pliers one day. I was in the house by myself. Mama was outside, and I cut that wire in two. And if it hadn't been for the plastic on the handles of that, I wouldn't be here today. But I was an adventurous kid. I just found a watch one time, and I just knew I could take it apart and put it back together. Well, guess what? It never made it back together, but I was just curious about so many things. And I'm just really, really grateful that I had a strong-minded woman to raise me, because, you know, telling what I would have done if I hadn't had her. And, you know, we get blessed in so many different ways that we don't realize, because if I hadn't had her in my life, I probably wouldn't be here today. I have to give her all the credit. She was extremely good to me. She even allowed me to wear her last name, which was Bishop, when she enrolled me in school at 5 years old. I had Carruthers on my birth certificate, but I never ever got a chance to use it because I was a bishop, and I never even thought about using that birth certificate name. I had my mama's name, and that meant everything to me. She was so good to me, but she was very, very strict, like I say, and she needed to be strict with me because I was a little bit on the crazy side. But you can overcome anything if you put your mind to it and you've been directed into the right path. And she definitely directed me into the right path. She made sure that I was walking upright and doing what I needed to do at all times. Even though in my sneaky moments, she would catch me, and I caught spankings back then. And I'm grateful for those spankings, because if I hadn't caught those spankings, like I say, keep saying, it ain't no telling what I would be. I'm telling you, I was a wild child. But she had the upper hand on the wild child. She made sure that I stayed in line.